Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is considered by many scholars to be the first work of science fiction. At age 18, Shelley got the idea for Frankenstein at the Villa Diodati on Lake Geneva, whilst on vacation with Percy Shelley, his friend and fellow poet, Lord Byron, and Byron's personal physician, John Polidori. The four were involved in a ghost story writing competition and had discussions of fundamental scientific principles, as discovered through Polidori's journal entries. Mary Shelley's own journal reveals what she was reading as research, such as accounts of polar exploration, the difference between alchemy and chemistry in Davy's 1812 Elements of Chemical Philosophy, and the concepts of brain development. The novel weaves mortality with scientific experimentation as the archetypal Victor Frankenstein, the first mad scientist character, successfully reanimates a being. The novel was truly revolutionary for its time, but was it really the first work of science fiction? Of course, it is considered to be so. However, many have argued that there are other precursors to the genre. There had been many sci-fi-esque writings to come before 1818. The 18th century saw the emergence of stories in the Hollow Earth subgenre of science fiction that is perhaps most reminiscent of Jules Verne's 1864 novel Journey to the Center of the Earth, which describes an expedition into the Earth's interior whereby the protagonist discovers a subterranean ocean. Notable 18th century works within the Hollow Earth subgenre include Giacomo Casanova's 1788 Ecosamaran, as well as the earlier novel of Ludwig Holberg's Niels Klim's Underground Travels. The satirical novel, initially published in Latin by the Norwegian-Danish author, describes the travels of protagonist Niels Klim, who, whilst investigating a strange cave, falls down a hole and onto a planet orbiting inside the hollow of the Earth. The Hollow Earth theory at this time was perhaps not as outlandish of a concept, as Edmund Halley, the Astronomer Royal in Britain, hypothesized in 1692 that the Earth consisted of a shell about 800 kilometers thick, with two inner shells and an innermost core. Another genre of science fiction, space travel, is the key plot of the 1752 novella Micromega. The story tells of a visit to Earth by Micromegas, an inhabitant of a distant planet which circles the star Sirius, and his companion, the two traveling onwards together to Earth. After learning to communicate, the two giant aliens learn about humans and their philosophers. The aliens laugh when they hear of Aquinas' theory that the universe was made for mankind, and so pledge to write a book explaining to the humans the point of everything. Finally, the secretary of the Academy of Science in Paris opens the completed book, only to see nothing but blank pages. A subgenre of space travel fiction, lunar exploration, popularized by Jules Verne in From the Earth to the Moon, made appearances in European works of the 17th and 18th centuries, such as Daniel Defoe's The Consolidator, published in 1705, Cyrano de Bergerac's The Comical History of the States and Empires of the Moon, from 1657, Johannes Kepler's 1634 novel Somnium, which Isaac Asimov, famed author of Foundation and I, Robot, referred to as the first work of science fiction. The bulk of the story is Kepler recounting his dream of his journey to the island of Lavania, which is Earth's moon. In 1666, the first science fiction novel to have been written and published by a woman appears, Margaret Cavendish's The Blazing World. Cavendish was married to William Cavendish, later the Duke of Newcastle, whose literary and scientific salon accounted for her writing inspirations. Cavendish was childless and became an avid student of the scientific ideas of the day, in turn writing plays, poems, biographies, scientific treatises, and romances. Her love for writing was so intense that she had a scribe whom she would wake up in the night to take dictation. In May 1667, she became the first woman to attend a meeting at the Royal Society of London, the United Kingdom's National Academy of Sciences, where she criticized and engaged with members and philosophers. In The Blazing World, a young lady is kidnapped and ends up passing through an entrance in the North Pole and into the Blazing World. Thomas More's 1516 work of fiction and philosophy, Utopia, a word he invented himself, describes a fictional utopian island society. Utopia is not necessarily a work of proto-science fiction. However, it popularized the use of imagined parallel realities in fiction and is the origin for the literary genres of utopia and dystopia. Science fiction-like elements appeared throughout medieval literature. In John Gower's 33,000-line Middle English poem Confessio Amantis, Alexander the Great constructs a flying machine and explores the depths of the ocean in a proto-submarine. Also, the medieval book Mandeville's Travels presents itself as a travel memoir of an Englishman, Sir John Mandeville, who recounts marveling at the automated golden birds he comes across during his travels in the Far East. During the European Middle Ages, science-fictional themes of robots and automata appeared throughout many chivalric romances. The Roman de Troyes, circa 1165, is a French verse version of the Trojan War written by Benoit de Saint-Maur, and features 4 robot-like figures in the central hall of the Trojan court, one of which performed somersaults, one of which played musical instruments, and one which showed people what they most needed. Non-human automata also appears in Geoffrey Chaucer's The Squire's Tale, and features a brass horse with the power of teleportation, and is reminiscent of similar metal horses in Middle Eastern literature. In fact, several stories within the 1001 Nights, or Arabian Nights, also feature science fiction elements. In City of Brass, a group of travelers journey through the Sahara in search of a lost city and are directed towards the city by a brass robot horseman. Along the way, they encounter a mummified queen, humanoid robots, and marionettes dancing without strings. Another robot horse appears in the tale The Ebony Horse, and flies into outer space and toward the sun. Looking further east, the Japanese fairy tale of Urashima Taro is a time-traveling story in which a young fisherman visits an underwater palace, only to return to his village and discover that he is 300 years in the future. Many science fiction elements appeared in the ancient 2nd century CE work, A True Story, by Lucian of Samosata, who intended to parody Homer. In A True Story, Lucian satirizes the travel narrative by telling of a journey he and his companions go on, where a storm transports them to the moon. The world of the moon is depicted as having many sci-fi elements familiar to modern-day readers. In this world exists diverse cultures. The characters learn of strange life forms, and there is an interplanetary war occurring between the sun and the moon people. On their journey back to Earth, the travelers are swallowed by a whale, within which exists advanced civilizations. Some consider A True Story as the first science fiction novel, in that it is the earliest known work to so closely resemble the science fiction we are familiar with today. However, other scholars believe the title of the earliest work of science fiction belongs to the ancient Mesopotamian Epic of Gilgamesh from 2000 BCE, though the lack of explicit elements of science or technology in the work has led many to categorize the ancient tale as the originator of fantasy literature. Lucian's A True Story has benefited from this argument, making it a more convincing candidate as the first known work of science fiction. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and want to see more.